Hey, did you know I'm doing a toy drive for the kids? That's right. If you want to support underprivileged children this holiday season, click the link below or in my bio, and you'll be able to access our link to our toy drive. We're going through Amazon, so all you need to do is buy toys. You can see we've already got a ton of them. The more the merrier. We are looking for gifts still for the very young kids, as well as gifts for the older kids. Thank you to all who've already bought toys and donated. Seriously, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much, and enjoy the video. Next up, we have Matt. Now, Matt is a leftist Christian who says there is reason to believe Jesus performed miracles. So we're going to see what Matt's evidence is on that. Matt, if you could hear me, if you could please provide me with your age and pronouns.
Hey, Jovan. I'm Matt. I'm 23, and my pronouns are he, him.
Okay. Okay, 23, he, him. And you said there is a reason to believe in Jesus' magic. So what evidence do you have for Jesus performing miracles, Matt?
So direct evidence-wise, as much as you can say, there's no direct evidence of something like the Big Bang, but following a logical line of reasoning here, right? We have, in Roman times, right? We're going back to thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago at this point, but we have a man who was born, 32 years of life was all that he had, right? And this kind of, I mean, I don't want to call it a cult following, I'm sure you would, but arises around this man. He goes to a colony of lepers, supposedly cures them. They begin to follow him. I mean, he
What's our evidence that any of these people he cured actually followed him or existed? We don't have any firsthand accounts from these people.
I mean,
we don't have any secondhand accounts from these people.
One second. There are many historical accounts of Jesus, both from
no contemporary
the
ones.
Roman Empire.
No, there's zero Roman Empire. First and foremost, there's zero Roman emperor writings about Jesus. The Roman Empire did not write about Jesus while he was alive.
I question that. I'll look for that. Obviously, the onus is on me to prove that. I think I have seen documentation of that.
No, there's zero contemporary writing of Jesus. Zero. None. We don't have any. Could some exist that we've not?
Just to clarify.
Uh-huh.
I know you're. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead and ask your clarification.
I do want to ask. I know your claim is that his miracles did not exist. Would you argue that he himself did not exist either?
I am unconvinced of his existence because of the writings that do say he exists all come from the Bible, but I'm okay with conceding that he might have been a real person. I think that there are enough secondhand accounts that he may have existed, but there's no contemporary writings of us. But yeah, I'm unconvinced based on the evidence that he did exist, but I have no problem conceding that he did.
Okay. What would be your idea as to why, the different apostles and let's say non-Roman accounts of it? Because I'll accept your claim. It's tough to find here any particular Roman accounts, and that might be a misremembering on my part. Where honestly, I was raised Christian. People, your priests say things that probably are not true half the time. But why do you think there was an account of this man from different sources?
Well, we don't have any accounts. We don't have any accounts of Jesus written by any of the apostles. The only accounts of Jesus that we have biblically are the Gospels and the letters of Paul. Those, and none of the
Sure.
people who wrote those ever met him. So that's what I mean by no contemporary writings. Means that nobody who was alive at the time of Jesus, or nobody wrote about Jesus in the time that he was alive. There's no contemporary writings that exist for him.
But for, the book of Matthew, the book of Mark, the book of Luke, all those that were supposedly written contemporary to the time, or at least were accounts of people who were contemporary to Jesus.
Yeah, I don't have any reason to believe.
that
I don't have any reason to
those are
believe
not?
that they didn't tell lies, and I would believe that most of what they wrote probably weren't true because they tell conflicting information on a lot of different things. So because Matthew, Mark,
So
Luke,
why
and
would
John can write conflicting information,
Uh-huh.
leads me to believe that there's not much to believe in their writings.
Okay. Well, then why do you believe that the Christian movement began? Do you think that it began at a
Control.
time, hundreds of years after his supposed death, or?
No, I mean, it definitely started very close to his death. I mean, Paul was 20 years post death. But I think it was probably for a level of control.
Right.
Control and power, I think, are the two big ones. Yeah.
A level of control by a persecuted people within Judea. I'm confused by that. How would that?
Yes.
How would that execute a level of control among people who are not in power whatsoever at the time?
Because they knew if they could grow their
And
movement
were being
large enough,
killed
they
and
could gain.
persecuted by those in power.
Yeah, because they knew if they could grow their movement large enough, they could gain that power.
What do you think? I mean, what the gap between the Roman Empire, A, stopping the persecution of Christians, and B, adopting Christianity as
look,
as the
Matt,
national
I could
religion
even concede to you that like the gospel writers and Paul probably did believe what they were writing. I could concede that. They might have actually believed. There are plenty of people who wrote about Joseph Smith who believed what the bullshit Joseph Smith was peddling. Right? It doesn't mean that like without some sort of like if we're looking at the Bible is a book of claims. The New Testament. It is a book of claims that these things happened without any, I won't say the word because everybody's mad at me that I don't know how to pronounce it. So without any evidence that substantiates this claim, these claims, I have no reason to believe in the mysticism. Now, if you want me to believe that a guy existed and a guy got crucified and died for, well, at the time was crucified, and Jesus was crucified because there were claims that he was king, and it was illegal in Rome to claim to be a king over Julius Caesar. That's fine because that's all plausible things. Right. But men rising from the dead is not plausible. Men healing lepers through space magic is not plausible. Men walking on water is not plausible. Now, I do think there could have been things that happened that they equated to, miracles because they didn't have an understanding. Like, I'm sure there could have been somebody who was not fully blind who we know that through the power of suggestion, our brains can do some crazy shit, who was able to see, and the claim was Jesus healed me, but we don't know if he could still see a week later. We don't know any of these things. Like, we have to take this is what faith is. You have to just believe what the Bible is telling you. And as an atheist and a skeptic, I see no reason to believe this without some sort of evidence that exists outside of the Bible. And nobody outside of the Bible wrote about Jesus performing miracles. Even Josephus didn't outwardly claim Jesus performed miracles. He just said there was a dude named Jesus that people were worshiping, and that dude is said to have done some really cool shit. He never claims any miracles happened.
Well, documentation-wise, what do we have of other events? And this is something I'm not 100% sure of, so I'm gonna rely on you on this, and I'm assuming that you've done your research here because you've debated this. I watch your debates pretty regularly. I think you've been doing it for 2 or 3 years at this point, at least. And this is a pretty common claim of yours. Contemporary to the time, right? Do we have a ton of documentation regarding other events that were happening?
Yes.
From the Roman Empire, which would be probably the main. What would one of those events be?
I mean, Julius Caesar had dozens of contemporary people that wrote about him while he was alive, both his enemies and his followers.
That's true, but Caesar was also the emperor of the capital region of the empire, whereas Judea was, thousands of miles away.
But if
and
Jesus was doing, the things that they claim he did, people should have written about it while it was happening. You would assume somebody would be writing about these magnificent things happening while they were happening. It's not like there weren't Jewish. It's not like there weren't Jewish historians at the time. Again, Josephus was a Jewish historian who existed at the exact same time as Jesus was supposed to have existed. He never met him, or maybe not same time. I think Josephus was a little bit later, but still.
I see your point there, but I do think that there was very different levels of documentation regarding things happening at the heart of the empire.
Why didn't the apostles? Why didn't the apostles keep records? Why didn't the apostles keep any records of Jesus Christ?
Bible, those are records.
No, but those aren't records written by the apostles. They're records written by Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, who are all anonymous authors who wrote down these things 40 plus years after Jesus' death.
Those are the apostles.
No, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John were not apostles. No, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John were not. You got to go back and do some studying up on biblical, like Bible, not theology, but on Bible history. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are all anonymous. We don't have any evidence of their authors. In fact, I think it's Luke outwardly writes that he never met Jesus Christ. He's the only one who outwardly is like, never met this man. None of them write in the first person that I met Jesus personally. In the Bible, and all of them are written, the earliest of the Gospels is written 40 years after Jesus' death.
Okay. So your fundamental claim is the accounts of Christ are from completely unreliable narrators, right?
I would claim the Gospels are unreliable narrators, yes. Especially John.
I'm sorry, you broke up a little bit.
I said I would definitely claim that the Gospel authors are unreliable, especially John.
Okay. And there is no reliable narrator regarding Jesus and any account of Jesus' existence, let alone his acts of miracle. Okay.
Yeah, there because there are no contemporary writings about him, because the Roman, if he was this big important figure that Rome was hunting for, they didn't write any. They had no records of him, no records of sentencing him to death, because of the multitude of contradictions written by the gospel authors. I have no reason to believe in any of the mysticism. If you want me to believe in his existence, I think fine, he meets the burden of proof, in my opinion, that a lot of people back then need, which is just like having a couple people write about you. Like, that's fine to believe that he might have been a real person. But it's more likely, in my opinion, that Jesus was made up to spread a religion. That to me seems more plausible than almost anything else.
So, but apex of the claim, right? If I could find a historical account of Jesus, which I'm trying to find right now, outside of, a Bible study website, which is like, that's not going to give me a reliable argument. I think we can agree on that. If I could find an account of his existence or something that would very strongly suggest his existence from something more secular, right? What would be your argument of, okay, he existed, but then why did he have this huge following if there was no miracleism? Or, I guess you said that it could just be things that we would understand now, or maybe in the near future would understand, but didn't then. Would that be your apex claim there?
If so, the earliest writings of Jesus Christ that we have historically are from Paul. Paul didn't know Jesus in life. His only claim was that he saw Jesus in the desert. He never met Jesus, which is why, some people consider Paul an apostle. I think it's kind of dumb to consider him an apostle, but even if you do, you consider him like not a direct apostle. And then you have Josephus and Tacitus, who both wrote about Jesus as well after his death, right? If you're able to find some contemporary writing of Jesus, you would do what literally no one else on the planet has been able to do, in which case I'd be like, holy shit, yo, Matt probably needs a lot of money for that find archaeologically. But yeah, even if we can prove Jesus existed, it doesn't prove the mysticism. And one of the issues that I have, again, is it's the contradictions. Like, for example, there's mass contradictions in the Gospels about what happened at the resurrection. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Oh, sorry, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
No, that's fine. You said Josephus never referred to the existence of Christ, or at least said that he never met him. Which one of those is your claim there? I'm sorry.
Josephus never met Jesus. He was born he was born like 7 years after he died. So he never met Jesus personally.
Right.
All he does is he said that, if I'm remembering correctly, Josephus says that like Jesus existed and he's a person people were worshiping. I think. Let me pull up Josephus's writing to be sure.
I'm seeing that one of his writings where he refers to Christ, it's saying circa AD 93. So that's less than 100 years. That's 60-ish years after Christ had died. That's not a very long time. I would think that in a less developed part of the empire where they probably had far less records of these things, right, that word of mouth would travel that this guy was around 60 years ago. I mean, even back then, there were a few people who were probably around 60 years before. Maybe not many, but a few, based on where the Roman Empire was at technologically, medically, things like that.
Yeah, so there's two.
Why do you think he would refer to it? Do you think it's self-interested?
So there's two writings of Josephus that they attribute to the knowledge of Jesus. One is in the James passage, which has been authenticated, and people it's considered by scholars to be like almost 100% authentic when it comes to Josephus. He says the brother of Jesus who is called Christ. Okay. That's it. That's literally the only mention. It's specifically right now, when he's talking about James. He says James was the brother of Jesus who is called Christ. That's it. He just says that Jesus is called Christ. The other comes from the Testimonium, I don't know how it's pronounced, like Flavanium or something. Most scholars don't believe this is authentic writing. And this is where he says, at this time lived Jesus, a wise man, if indeed one ought to call him a man, for he was a doer of surprising works. He was the Christ. He appeared to them alive again on the third day. Most people believe this wasn't written, like most, even Christian scholars believe that this was not originally written by Josephus, but added into his work later. Even if we want to analyze this, it seems weird that when talking about Jesus in earlier writings, that he talks about Jesus so offhandedly, but then all of a sudden starts writing about Jesus very detailed. It seems weird that he would say at the first that Jesus was called Christ and now is saying Jesus is Christ. This feels very contradictory to me in the writings. But even if this is the case, right, all Josephus is saying is that there was this man that existed that people were claiming was the Christ, which could be true. It could be true. Again, I'm not convinced by this only, but it could be the case that there was a man named Jesus Christ who existed at that time who everybody called the Messiah. I have no issues with believing that to be the case. Is he really divine? Is he really the Messiah? Did he really do the miracles? That's where, because Josephus never claims Jesus did miracles. He claims he did great work, but great work can mean quite literally anything.
I see your point there. I am seeing now another account from a historian who is a Roman historian named Tacitus.
Yes.
And he was around about 100 years after the birth of Christ. And he claims, he says, consequently, this is in the Annals, which was covering the Roman Empire from 69 to 96. Consequently, to get rid of the report, Nero, this is about Emperor Nero and the burning of Rome. Consequently, to get rid of the report, Nero fastened guilt and inflicted the most exquisite tortures on a class hated for their abominations, called Christians by the populace. Christus, from whom the name had its origin, suffered the extreme penalty during the reign of Tiberius at the hands of one of our, I'm not even going to try to say that name.
Pontius Pilate.
And, and a most mischievous superstition thus checked. Okay. All this stuff.
Tacitus is claiming that somebody named Christus existed. He doesn't actually call Jesus by name. He says Christus existed, and that they penalized him during the reign of Tiberius and Pontius Pilate. This is a claim that I think is fine. I think it's okay. It is independent of a Christian source. It comes from a separate course there. It's a hostile witness. Like, he doesn't say that he likes Jesus. So that's good. That's good evidence towards him existing. It's the earliest we have of any Roman implication that Jesus existed. Using Tacitus, I have no issue with claiming Jesus was real. But again, kind of wish it was more contemporary. It seems weird that because Tacitus is that's true. Tacitus could be just repeating the stories that he's heard, which again, if we know that he didn't start writing this until 100 years after Jesus' death, the Gospels had already existed. Paul's letters had already existed by this point. So he could just be repeating the myth. But that's why I say I have no problem conceding his existence based on things like Josephus and Tacitus's writing, the letters of Paul. But I have no problem conceding that Jesus existed. But again, none of the people that wrote about him separately, outside of Christianity, so Josephus and Tacitus, none of them write that he did any miracles.
I don't think that. The thing is, this was a very poor man starting from a very small group of followers. He didn't have a historian going along with him. I don't think that we're ever going to find many, if any, historical accounts of his miracles. I think the closest thing we have is like a couple months ago they had an account that they might have found the site of where the water into wine happened. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. I do think that this was an interesting conversation, and it's hard to prove something that you're right. It really doesn't have a lot of proof. I haven't thought about it too much. And I just want to say you're doing great stuff. I'm a big fan of yours, so keep it up, and I hope we can have another discussion.
All right. Yeah. If you end up wanting to talk about it again and you have some new talking points, feel free to call back.
All right. Have a great day, Jovan.
You too. I hear there was an internet issue. Are you guys back? Refresh. I should be back. Hey, you guys missed what I thought was a really good conversation. Hey, thank you all for watching this video. If you don't know me, I'm Jovan Bradley. I'm a leftist content creator who does debates, political commentary, gaming, and more. If this is your first video, thanks for sticking to the end, and I hope you subscribe. I post videos daily, and there are hundreds of past debates on my page for you to enjoy. Thank you to all my YouTube members. Your continued support helps me create as much as I can. Consider joining. A membership starts at $2.99 and gets you access to our community Discord, early access to videos, and more. Shout out to my Tier 4 members, Red Fairy DF, Ellie McReady, Not 3.6R, Sylvia Snow, Paul D, Zurith Moonpaw, Kazim, Never Again, Bamji, Emery Imogene, Ayla Ursus, Call Me Vel, Kelsey K, Jake Gorshander, Matthew Holloway, Vampy, Yemye, Mealy, and Dragon Nerd. Your continued support goes a long way in helping me continue the fight for equity, justice, and education. Thank you again for watching.